Hey, Clint, how you doing, man?
Doing good today.
Right on. Hey, well, thank you for making time for us. This has been on my mind for a few months now, to meet with you and actually get you on here and for people to get to know who you are. And so what I like to do is start with what we call the Mad Minute.
Sure.
We just run through some questions real quick. I borrowed this from another guy in another podcast, and I think it works really well to warm things up. So I don't know you really, really well, but I know of you, and we've had a few good conversations, and I've been watching you because of how intriguing you've been to me since the first time we talked. Okay. In the world's weird stalker world of Facebook, you get to start seeing people unfold.
Yeah.
And then you hear things. Once I started hearing your name and other people that would maybe have some small attacks, and I'm like, that's not the dude I know. Sure. And then I get the other side of it with your humor and how you banter and how fun you are about that stuff. And you just take it like a water off duck's back, right? It's just like, whatever.
Yes.
Well, and I don't know how it is internally, but you seem to be like, it comes with the territory and you get it. And that's cool. So thank you for making time.
Thanks.
So Clint is just got voted on to be city commissioner. Did a great job. Excited to have you on there in your leadership.
Thank you.
I think you bring a new, fresh voice. You're a young leader, and you're stewarding a lot of other things in your life. And I can't wait to get into some of those things. But as we start off this Mad Minute, just want to ask you, Clint, what's your favorite color?
This was the most agonizing question to think about. So the rest of it will be easy. We'll get this out of the way at the beginning.
Right on.
It really depends on my favorite color of what. I have my favorite color of car, but also have my favorite color of shirt that I wear.
Okay.
So, but if I had to summarize it, it'd be blue and red, both.
Blue and red.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. What's your, and that's different. You came in with a different angle because, that makes sense, right? Like, okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite sport?
Football, hands down.
Hands down?
Yeah. Easy.
Any background there with football?
I played football in high school.
Okay.
And that's about it, though.
Right on.
I coached a basketball team and realized you have to be much nicer to basketball kids than you do football kids. And so football was kind of my thing. I like coaching football now and help with that. And so.
What position did you play?
I played on the defensive line.
Okay.
And then I played on special teams. I was just a blocker. I was a big kid, so I didn't offer much other than just size.
The guys in the trenches are the ones that do all the hard work.
Yes. Yeah.
The real football players know that.
Yes.
You guys don't get no love, but y'all guys are in there battling like crazy, making us look good.
Yeah.
Muscle car or luxury sedan? What's your flavor?
I think muscle car.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Any specific type?
I really like Chevy. So Chevy period. Anything Chevy I like. But my favorite, though, would be a Chevy Bel Air. I don't know. That could kind of be luxury. It could also kind of be muscle.
Yeah.
It depends on how they're fixed up. But
So it's like sporty.
maybe like the color. It depends on what I'm doing.
Right on.
So.
Right on. It's kind of like on the color. Yeah, there you go. What event are you showing up to, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right on. What's your go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant? Give one of our restaurants some love out here.
Gertie's, hands down.
Gertie's?
Yeah, Gertie's is where it's at. I get a double and grilled onions with ketchup and mayo.
Nice.
That's it.
Just like that.
Just like that.
And fries, they have different
Crinkle
style.
cut.
Crinkle.
Yes,
okay.
with the Diet Pepsi, they know it when I go in.
They already know your deal.
It's unfortunate I go in there enough that they know it. So, but yeah, Gertie's is my place for me. But I haven't been in for a while trying to watch what I eat. So
yeah, they got some what my buddy called circus food there too, which makes it fun because they got like a grilled cheese something that or another, and then they got this one with macaroni and cheese in it.
Yeah.
So they got some fun things that you normally wouldn't have even at your bigger places, and you can do that at a small one-off like that. So, and they they're bringing a lot to the community. I love what they're trying to do there and what they've done because to build any business is tough. And it's a big
very
investment.
Involved in donating and helping and supporting, and that's really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah,
it is
I
cool.
enjoy that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So shout out to Gertie's, guys. Get out there and get something. Support your local businesses.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there any special space in Harvey County that you enjoy and why?
I have grown to like Athletic Park. I think it's just a neat place. It is unique in just its design. I enjoy that. Although one-way traffic does make it difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
But I've grown to like it. It seems to be, to me, just kind of a hub for just community building. It seems to be a place that happens with Sand Creek Summer Days Festival and all the sporting events that happen there, not to mention the stadium is iconic in just high school football. So that's a place that I enjoy. It's kind of peace to me in the midst of the city.
Right.
I drive by it every day, so I enjoy going by there.
Right on. And there's groups being more intentional about using it for community things. And I think it's a great move. I'm glad we are trying to put some energy and efforts into it to use it for those purposes. And it is a special place. I do hate, here's some negative. When I come in, I think it's Broadway. I take a left and then I want to park right there.
Yes.
And I have to take a right and go all the way around the park right there. I break.
Right. Yeah.
Newton PD, sorry, man. I might have broken the law a few times because I just there's nobody here. I'm taking that left. I got that parking spot right there, unfortunately. But no, it's a great spot. We did a 5K there or around there. There were some things going on that morning, but I had such a good time running and enjoying and seeing all the people that came from the surrounding communities to do that run. And some of the things I was hearing about it, I was like, man, we take this for granted. Yeah. And probably shouldn't, but anyways, it teach their own. All right. Well, that's that. So kind of breaking into some of what's going on here. I just want to hit it right on the head. You just got voted in as a city commissioner, and you've got a lot of other responsibilities, and we'll get into all those things. Okay. And I want the community to get to know you if they take the time to listen to this and know about you and some of the interesting things that you were in the Army.
Yes.
And I had no idea. I'd known you for a couple of months before I even realized, and said, you don't say anything. You just kind of go along your way. And what a special thing. And I just love how you just kind of, it's was part of my life. Yeah. And I'm like, that was just kind of part of your life, because it's a big deal. And I didn't get to do that. And I didn't have the opportunity. I did have the opportunity. I didn't choose to. And I regret that today. Yeah. And so when I see a lot of guys like yourself who just, you don't hang your hat on it, but it's part of who you are, it's just a really cool thing. So, but you just got voted on the city commission. Tell me about that experience and tell me what that looked like for you and why you jumped in.
Yeah. Definitely jumped in just as an opportunity to serve the community. Mm-hmm. Observing from the outside, I had gotten involved in going to the city commissions with our pastoral team here in Newton of all the churches, right? That goes and prays before the services or before the commission meetings. And so that was some of my first interaction with it. And before that, I had never been involved in any kind of local government. I grew up in a home that was paid attention to the news and politics, but never was involved. My parents weren't involved. Every once in a while, I remember seeing a campaign yard sign out in our yard, but that was the extent of it. Right. But my grandpa, though, he was involved and had ran for state senator at one time and lost, but not really any political affiliation in our family before. And so going to the meetings and praying, I just enjoyed seeing what was happening there, right, and realizing the impact that it had on the community, such a significant impact. And then there was things that were happening that had happened and or things that were being said. And I thought, well, that really affects us in the church. Right. We're completely dependent off of everybody else's success in the community. And so if businesses close up and they leave, our churches don't have people to attend them anymore. And it's, a city can only get so small before there's no one left. And so not that that's happening here, but it just made me think, if I want to see our churches grow, if I want to see the kingdom of God grow, there's another side of this that has to grow as well. And we have to have people to reach. We're not going to get people to drive from, or not very many people are going to drive from Salina to come to church here or from Emporia or something like that. We might pull a few people from Wichita, but honestly, the people that come from Wichita that attend my church are people that I know personally that come because of me there. So it was just a way to say, I want to see a greater impact on this community. And this is one way to do it, is to run and be a part of city commission. So that was kind of my thought behind it. Not to mention that, I thought there were some things we could do differently in the city and just be better at. And so
talk about going after the snake by the head for what you believe and where you're hanging your hat. You went right for it in a place where you do have a lot of influence and some people get high off of that. And I can honestly say the little bit of interaction we have, I don't see that part in you. And it takes a lot of work and to have, you're a pastor and to have your church, give that stamp of approval for you to go through and spend that time knowing where your vision's at and understanding what you're doing for the community as a whole, not just for you and your church. I think that's just an amazing thing that you're just really, no excuses. You're going right up there, marching to the front and handling it.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Yeah, when I got hired by the church, I 7 years ago, I told them that I was not coming into this being hired to work within these four walls. I was not being hired to work for this church. They were paying me to work,
right,
for the community and the kingdom.
Right.
And I grew up in Wichita, so I still had a lot of friends there. So it was important to me that I was still able to connect with them and interact with them, and kids that I had went to youth group with that were no longer attending. So when I brought up the idea to my church body, to our governing body at our church about running for city commission, I think it was just a natural thing. It was like, okay, well, this doesn't surprise us that Clint wants to do that.
Right.
He's not your
wasn't a
typical
shocker.
pastor that's going to sit here and not do anything and get paid for it. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Welcome to another side of Clint that's coming out, and they were very good with it. So
That's
very
good.
thankful for them.
That's great. Good leadership, it sounds like.
Yes, very much so.
And they needed a good leader to be a good leader.
Yeah.
So, hey, real quick, and I don't know if these numbers are factual, and you probably would know.
Okay.
You're a
We'll
numbers
see.
guy. Yeah. What I heard is it's again, I didn't really seek this out, but it came from a pretty reliable source in my mind's eye that in Newton, there's about 20,000, give or take, right in that, give or take 500 or whatever that is. But they were saying only 5,000 are churched in our community. And there's probably, last I looked, it was 52 churches.
Yeah, there's around 52.
Yeah.
Of those 52, I've done a little bit of work on this on my own, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Like you said, a numbers guy. I like to know. Of those 52, we really have about 25 churches that are active.
Got it.
I think of those 52, there are some churches that are buildings that still have a name on them, that are still registered with the county or with the state as far as being a property, but may not hold services.
Understand.
So I think 25 to 27 would probably be more accurate as far as just functioning churches, but there are still people, even of those churches that are not meeting, that still say this is my church home and they don't go anywhere else. So they do make up a portion of that number.
Right.
5,000, I would say that's probably even very generous. I would say it's probably significantly less than that.
That's a shocker to me. And I was for a long time one of those people. And then I found an amazing place with some amazing leaders that poured into me, and I came back to my faith in my late 20s, and that was kind of my mid 20s, but really committed in my late 20s. So I was kind of halfway going, and I'm part of a great church family now, and I love those guys, and I love that community so much. But when I hear these things, it's just such a shocker. And so it does sound, 56, you're saying about more like 27, and I understand that. I didn't think about it like that, so that's a good piece of information. But in that, one of the questions I have for you following up on that before I forget, because I'm a squirrel, go 1,000 other ways, because this is important to me at least. And I'm wondering what you think about this, because you're innovative and you're young and you understand media differently than a lot of people, because we're growing up in the middle here where we have access to it, but we didn't completely grow up in this world, but we understand it and we're part of it. And there's some good and bad to everything, right? But how do you think media today in places like, those big online churches that I hear a lot of people are attending, they have these little hubs now, but a lot of them do attend online, and a lot of them do it as a family. And it's interesting to me because there's times when I will jump on the church I grew up in. Yeah. They're streaming now. And I'm like, whoa, and they changed their brand, and it's the same pastor that was there when I was there, and he's getting up there, but he's an amazing guy and taught me a lot, a little bit. You go through life and you see things differently, but I watch his services sometimes online, sitting here in my kitchen after I got back from church.
Yes. Yeah.
So how much do you think that's affecting people not going to the four walls of a church?
Yeah. I think that it does actually quite a bit. I think it's a significant portion of that. However, there are some trends that are saying, and by some people that do know, so they're not just like Clint McBroom trends, they're Tom Rainier, some church leader trends. And what some of those trends are saying are that the attraction to the online church at one time could be losing some ground, only because people are missing being together. And it's you find a family in anything. So if you're involved in football, for say, at the Newton Junior Rellers, huge family there. Those people know each other. They do life together. They have birthday parties together. They go to other people's funerals. There's just a huge family embodiment of that there.
Right.
And so in the church, it's the same way. But when your church body, who's somebody that you share something very similar with, is distant, and they're maybe in North Carolina and you're in Newton, Kansas, you can't gather with them on a regular time when life is defeating you. You can't sit down with them and cry on their shoulder, or they can't cry on yours. And so people are missing that. I do think it's a great way. My wife and I listen to actually one preacher often in the morning time, and we grow from that ourselves, but we are not at a point where, we would want it to replace the physical gathering together of people. And so I think it's important. I mean, just go to McDonald's in the morning time and you see a bunch of tables of communities there, they're families with each other.
Right.
And they share those burdens. And so it's important to still be involved in that. But I think that online presence has shifted that. But I think that, I would say that in the next couple of years, we'll see a return. Yeah,
I think it's valuable. And so here's my thoughts on it, whether anybody wants to hear them or not, because we're on the subject. And I thought about this a lot. I think it could be dangerous when that's your sole way of being fed.
Absolutely.
I think it's a good place to go back to the message during the week. Yeah. It's a good place to revisit things, especially when those messages, which, Chip, I get to listen to him pretty much every week. Mm-hmm. And I have access to his information or his messages every week. And for the most part, I take something from that week and I use it as a target for the week on stuff to unpack and to focus on. And so whatever that is and however it speaks to me. So I think as a record, it's really cool. But I think as a practice, I'm scared of where that takes us because of lack of community. And I agree with you. And I've seen and I've heard how even the church that I go to had, and there's a lot of reasons for this, right? It kind of was taking a dive and they almost shut the doors. I don't know if that's public information. I'm pretty sure it is because they say it from the pulpit. So it's not like they're trying to hide it, right? Because they went through that. But now it's amazing. And I think people are enjoying community, enjoying coming back together and having somebody to talk to for 20 minutes after the service that you're connecting, and then have lunch with maybe during the week or next Sunday after church, and making those connections and having those communities grow in the cell groups and the other things that happen or whatever churches call them, or their little connection groups, if you will. But I think, kneecap to kneecap and showing up and being a part of that community and taking communion together and all the things we get to do as a community, I really cherish those moments when I get them. And there's some people in that church that, one couple in particular, they're in their 80s, and I've fallen in love with those people, and they're so gracious, and they teach me so much, and they're willing to give me so much time if I'm able to just to get in front of them once a week even and listen and ask them questions and then listen to them and how they were able to process their life. And you learn so much by sitting down with somebody like that. For me, it's almost unbelievable. So that I could never give them the value that I get from them, but I really appreciate that. And it happens kneecap to kneecap because they're not going to be online and you can't see them online. And I would have never built that relationship if I wasn't showing up. Well, and there's a mutual common ground to start with. You know, it's your attendance at that church. Right. I'll just add this but I think that the online presence is great for people that miss one or two Sundays. They want to stay up to date. They want to follow along. If you're in a series or something like that. Yep. But I don't. It should never replace the actual gathering together of God's people, which is of course biblical. It says, let us not give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, so just an important thing for us to do to continually gather together. And it should be, and to piggyback off of that, and before I go on to keep beating this up, because there's so much I want to talk to you about, is it should be an exception to the rule. Absolutely. You're online. It's an exception to the rule. I was out of town or whatever, and I agree with those things. I mean, if people can disagree with us all day long, great, but that's my belief as well. I so love worship and the group, and as much as we're working on it and as much as we can grow, what we get is great. Yeah. And people give their time and you see them volunteering and we are in this thing together. And when you're giving and serving like that, it goes so much deeper. Yeah. And people need you as well. All right. That's awesome. Yeah. So, well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So real quick, what did life look like for you as a child? Who were you as a kid, man? Take me back. Oh man. He said, oh man. Yes. I grew up in a very stable home. My parents divorced when I was 6 months old, so I didn't know anything different. I was very young. My dad remarried when I was 3. Yeah. So that was just what I knew. However, my parents got along. Yeah. I've learned since then that there was maybe some things they didn't agree on. My dad and my stepmom and then my mom,
she never remarried, but my dad did. And so I lived with my dad and my stepmom growing up.
Right.
I learned later in life that there was things they disagreed on, but we never saw that. And I think it was very instrumental to us growing up that we never saw the disagreements that maybe they had. But I remember at birthday parties and family events that my parents were there. My dad and my mom biologically were both there. My stepmom was there. And oftentimes our extended families were all there together. So our families did very well functioning outside of that. And it's not so common. So I'm privileged because of that. I'm thankful for that. And still today, my parents, all of my parents, all three of them, I would say, can come in the same room together for different events. But growing up as a kid, I loved being outdoors. I did not do anything inside. I was the kid that like my parents were mad because I was outside too much. We lived on a neighborhood that was one entrance in and one entrance out, and it made a big loop.
Yeah.
And there was lots of houses there, but not lots of kids. And it was along the Arkansas River in Wichita. So we were able to kind of roam freely through this little neighborhood. And myself and the other kids in the neighborhood, we were, well behaved, but we pushed our limits. That's for sure. That's
cool, man.
No, we had lots of just loved being outdoors. I was very much I don't want to say risk taker in a bad way, but I like to do things that maybe the other kids wouldn't do. I like to try new things. I like to build things as a kid. If I could take something and take it apart and put it back together and make it be different, I would do that. Spent a lot of time with my dad's parents. So with my grandparents on my dad's side of the family, spent a lot of time with them growing up. That's who I was as a kid. I just liked to be outdoors, was heavily involved in Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts and church were our life growing up. So
nice.
Yeah.
Boy Scouts and church. And so that leads to, let's take me into high school. What did that look like?
I had went to a private Christian school through elementary school.
Right.
And then I went to public schools in middle school. And I went from the small private Christian school that had 7 or 8 kids per grade to Pleasant Valley Middle School in Wichita. Yes. It was a culture shock. It was, I was scared like the first year I went to school there to do anything. And so it was much different. However, I ended up becoming very, very good friends and stuff. Some of those people that are friends today at that school. It was a great, great transition for me as a person. It gave me the opportunity, and I've noticed this through my life. I can see 2 extremes of both things. So I saw the extreme of, these very conservative Christian families in this private school to going to a public school where, in 7th grade, there was kids getting busted for drugs at Pleasant Valley. And just, so it was like this total shock of world. And the kids in my neighborhood were not like that. They were good kids. And so it was just like, who are these people and where did they come from?
Right.
When I show up at the school. So going into high school, I went to Heights. I went to school with a lot of the kids that I went to middle school with for 3 years that I had become very good friends with. I loved high school. I had a lot of fun. I'd never got in trouble or anything. However, my senior year of English, I still got kicked out of the class for talking too much. So, and I like to talk. I like to socialize. Those were my people. And, and we were going to be friends. So I told my teacher one day when she told me that I was going to have to move to the other side of the room, I said, no disrespect, but if you move me there, I'll become friends with them. So take your pick. I'm going to be friends with whoever I'm with. I'm going to be part of the community. I'm going to visit with these people. Yeah. And so I spent the rest of the day outside because there was no one to make friends with outside of the classroom. My senior year of high school, most kids aren't getting kicked out of class for talking too much. Right. Now I get paid to talk, so it worked out.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. So, I love how you caveat that. However. Yes. Yeah. Well, and that kind of speaks a lot to me the more you're unpacking this of your versatility. It makes sense. That you just nailed it. 2 extremes of both worlds, and you've seen all in betweens and grew up around interesting family dynamic, but healthy as it could be for the situation you were in. Yep. And cheers to your parents, man. What a blessing to have. Yeah, no,
I'm very thankful that they were willing to do that. So now my kids today, they're able to see all of their grandparents at one time and not have to even split their time together. And that was more important, I think, for me as a parent now, was that my kids get that.
Do you think? How do I ask this question and not pry too deep? But then that's what we're doing. You said it's all good. Yeah. Yeah. And this is just kind of a podcast. We're not to be perfect. By the way, the people that are messaging us that send those messages, we don't have to be factual. It's a podcast. We're talking. We're playing with ideas. We're introducing you to people. I mean, come on, guys. This is not a news station yet. But at the end of the day, do you think your opinion on this, and if you think it's disrespecting your parents, by all means, we'll move on. But do you think that part of that they were going through, was it sacrifices on their part, or do you think they already made that choice and they didn't see it as a big deal?
I think it was both. I think both biologically speaking, my dad and my mom both wanted the best for their kids. And for whatever reason, their marriage didn't last. I'm not even sure of that. Even to this day, still, to me, it's irregardless. But I think it was that they wanted the best for their kids. Both of them did. And I respect both of them significantly for that. I think, though, as well, beyond that was probably a decision they made early on that we'll continue to be parents to our kids. And my dad and my mom are really opposite people. And so it's not surprising to me now, that I see that, but they have both been, great parents that have been supportive at different times and for different reasons. So, yeah.
Well, and thank you for that. Cause common sense, I guess now that I really think about that question, it would be a little bit of both. Cause there's probably times they were like, I don't want to do this, but they did it for you guys. But there's probably times it's like, hey, we're doing the right thing. And it actually feels good, because it is the right thing, even though it's tough.
Right.
And that's
Definitely.
where the goodies are built.
Yeah.
So really cool. Hey, tell me a little bit, and this was another thing that intrigued me, and just because I'm in the industry right now, in the sign industry, and I'm really into the LED signs, and that's what my company's been focusing on right now, and it's a great business to be in. It's tough and competitive, and it's an expensive spend for places, but man, there's a lot of value that we're out there doing. And then here I run into you, and you had been in that business at a different level for a long time.
Yeah.
How many years were you in the sign business?
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good chunk, but you learn a lot. And you're one of those guys, I would love to have you on my team. It's like, dude, we'll let you get away. But anyways, tell me about your professional life, your work history. Sure. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I remember hearing one time when I was a kid that you always look for new opportunities. And I really struggle with that now because my job is not an opportunity, but it's a calling, And so I can't walk away from that now.
That's good.
But you still see me finding new opportunities, city commission, right? And so, and looking for those things in my life. But I started off, right out of college, right out of high school. I was reserved. So did job training, basic training, job training stuff. And then I was able to start college. I started when I was about 19. So a little bit later, I had about a year off. Started working in the banking, but just as a teller. It wasn't anything I was going to choose to do for a long time. And moved back to Wichita to finish my schooling online, or to continue it online. And started working for my uncle for 7-Up. And got a CDL and drove one of the trucks for them. I did a lot of different things there. I worked there for a couple of years and just floated around after I got experience. We had a high turnover, so I was one of them that stayed there longer. My uncle was the manager. But spent time driving out to Western Kansas to pick up pop machines, drove up to Kansas City to pick up pallets of Fiji water. Yeah. Just fun. I really enjoyed that. And I realized that I'm really a person that likes to work with my hands, and I don't like to sit for a long time. I like to be moving and active. I would rather work 8 hours of physical labor than 8 hours at a desk. It's just who I am. So I enjoyed that for a while. And it was at that time that my wife and I had just got engaged. I knew I needed something better for our family that we were going to have. And so I started working at Cessna and realized after about 2 days that I hated working in a factory. It was not my thing. Right. I hated showing up and doing stretches with a bunch of guys before we went to work. And so I stuck through it though, stayed there for a while. I had a lot of family that worked out there. I didn't want to, I didn't want to hurt their feelings by leaving right away.
I get it.
Got moved to this weird weekend shift that was 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Meanwhile, I was still in school, so it did give me the opportunity to do some online studying and stuff. But I decided that I hated the shift. I didn't like working overnight. I didn't like working on the weekends, and they were taking voluntary layoffs, and you got paid all your vacation time and all your sick leave time. And so I was in at 6 o'clock and back home by 6:30 that night, and never looked back. Never had a desire to go back to work in the factory. So that is something that no matter what happens in life, I will never go to work in a factory. I just won't do it. And then it was during that time that I was really beginning to understand where I was supposed to be serving in the church. I knew I wanted to serve in the church, but it was beginning to understand where. And I had did an internship for youth ministry. And so people asked, what did you learn during your internship? And I realized I didn't want to work with youth. That's what I learned. I did not want to be a youth pastor.
Got it.
I didn't enjoy it. We were kind of on two different levels. It was middle school boys. I mean, they're hard. They're difficult to work with. And so I decided to walk away from that. And that is when I had actually taken my first pastorate in Colorado, and we moved out there. And it was not a good experience for us as a family. It was not even a good experience for me as a pastor. It was a difficult church. Some of the people there were very kind and very good to us, but there was other ones that were just very difficult. I was young. I was 22, I think, when we went out there, 23. I was pretty young and very immature. As a person as well, and didn't have the leadership development skills that maybe I possess now. But went out there and allowed myself to be involved in drama in the church that I shouldn't have been involved in. And then there was other times when there was drama and I was like, hey, we need to be involved in this. We need to get this correct. And other people were like, no, we're not going to worry about it. So there was, there was both of those situations. I left from there, and that's when I went into the sign business. I was unsure if the church is where I wanted to be at. And I knew my faith with the Lord would not change. I wasn't sure that vocationally speaking, I wanted to receive my career from the church.
Got it.
I felt nothing wrong about that. I felt a little guilty at first about it, but after visiting and studying and learning myself, it's not an uncommon thing for people to be heavily invested in the church, but not to receive an income from it.
Right.
And I had made a commitment to myself that I never wanted my kids to see their dad hurt by the church. And that was really important for me, for my kids to grow up in a home, if their dad was a pastor, that he spoke highly of the church, that he was favorable of the church. And so I didn't want there to be any option for my kids to go, man, my dad was treated so bad. So we left there after about 15 months. We came back to Wichita. First time without a job, had a family to care for, terrified. And so I had applied at a couple places that I knew were just looking for some entry-level jobs, wanted the money, some income.
Yep.
And George Lay Signs was hiring. And so they hired me to be an estimator. I did have my degree by this point, so that was good. Tell me there. But they hired me just to be an estimator or project manager. Can't remember, maybe both, whatever.
Yeah.
And
that world, you get in quick.
You kind of need both. Yeah. And so it was very quickly there that I went, that I moved up and ended up overseeing our installation crews and working with the owner kind of right hand on some projects and things. And during that time, the Newton Church had called me and asked if I would be willing to help fill in for them. Interestingly, when they called, I had preached there about 4 years before that. One time when the pastor at the time had got sick and I was going through my ordination, he had got sick and needed me to come and fill in. So I filled in for him. Well, they remembered who I was. They learned that I was back in Kansas, in Wichita specifically, and said, we want somebody just to preach on the weekend. Our pastor left. And so I said, sure, I'm available. I'll do it. And that turned into this today. So I ended up leaving George Lay after I had a very good job there. The owner of the company was a great guy to work for.
Right.
Very kind. He supported my effort of working with the church as well. There was days, afternoons that I would need to leave and go over and see somebody at the hospital just around the corner from George Lay.
Right.
And was given the opportunity to do that during my working day. He was very supportive. So that was a difficult thing to do, to leave there, knowing that I could still receive an income from there, but still serve the church in whatever capacity. But there was something that just kept telling me, it was the Spirit. I know that now, but it was something kept telling me, and that, man, that's where you're supposed to be at. Like, don't worry, you're going to leave something good, but I've got something else in store. And so I end up here. So that's kind of my development. I don't think I've ever not filled the call to ministry in my life. Even going back to a child, I remember in 4th grade at my private Christian school, I felt like I needed to give a message one day. And so I asked my teacher, could I do this? And she was like, yeah. So I came up with this lesson and gave a lesson. So I've always been that guy that wants to teach and wants to help. And it's led me here today. So that's kind of my development of my career. I see myself being a pastor the rest of my life.
You're just looking at doing it in today's world with different systems.
And you made a comment
outside the walls.
You made a comment earlier about just we're kind of at that age where we see things change and social media and the internet and stuff. And so I remember the first time that we got a computer in our home. so kind of having both worlds. I remember studying from an encyclopedia, but also remember going to Google and getting my information.
Right.
I remember in the church when, we had the people coming together because there wasn't the online presence. And then I remember what we have today where we have a heavy online presence.
Right.
And so, kind of navigating those waters. And so I love working in the church today, and I would never dream of doing anything differently. But
well, in my 2 cents, or my opinion, very humble opinion, because you're in your space and you're seeing it, and you're an intelligent guy, and you're going to look and read, and you're looking and probably studying from people that are further ahead of the curve than you are, with a lot more experiences, with more reps, because you're smart like that and you get it. You're going to borrow from that when you think you need to. It's going to take individuals like yourself that are going to recreate that part of our society in the way that it's balanced and healthy. And, the learning curve that we're going through, we don't have the answers, but unfortunately it takes a lot longer than we would like to get back to where there's some things that you just can't go without. And we're people, you can do a virtual reality church all day long. It's not going to be the same. And, there's people out there that'll push back on me, especially in my industry. I'm in the tech industry. And
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Well, and I look at things differently, but honestly, there's a balance. There's truly a balance. And I do a power hour at Norms, and I'm very intentional about doing that because I can work here, 50 hours a week and not see anybody almost, except for my family. And that's kind of a cool place to be, is like I get to see my kids now and I don't have to mess with anybody. But and yes, some video conferencing and calling, and sometimes I don't know, 40, 50 calls a day sometimes, and some of them are very intense, but there's times when I have 3 or 4 phone calls and don't talk to anybody until my kids get home. And so the disconnect and the feeling lonely and all the stuff that starts setting in, and people with depression issues and things like that. In this world, it can trap you up really quick.
Oh yeah.
So that's really great that guys like yourself, I'm so excited about generation stewarding us forward and respecting the generations before us, but then adding our own twists and flavors, but knowing that the church right now is outside the walls, and we need to figure out how to teach and steward people back into those walls in a creative way that makes sense, and so it's going to take time, but guys like you will figure it out. I'm excited about that. So thank you for what you do in that capacity. Man, there's so much more here. What is something, and I don't want to be negative about this, but let's just do this one. What are you curious about right now? What's driving your curiosity meter? And I know you're 100 miles an hour. I know you started a company that you're doing. You build things, and you have a really amazing craftsmanship. By the way, I want a podcast table.
Okay.
I need to talk to you about that. And I have an idea and pictures.
Sure. Yeah.
And we'll see if I can afford it or not. Yeah. But you're a go-getter, right? And you're ambitious. What is Clint curious about right now?
Oh man, my life is very compartmentalized. So it depends on which compartment I want to pull from. But I would say personally, maybe the best one.
Personally, please.
Man, my kids are growing up, and our 2 oldest boys both have autism. So if people didn't know that, but so it's kind of different. I mean, we're learning with our 12-year-old what it's like to have a 12-year-old in the home.
Right.
Our oldest son is 16. He's at the level of probably a 3 or 4-year-old.
Yeah.
We're very blessed in a lot of ways, though. It's more of just his social interaction that he's there.
Yeah.
But physically developing, he's completely healthy. So we're blessed for that.
Right.
But we have a 12-year-old that is a 12-year-old, and he's going to be a teenager, and he'll be driving in a couple of years. And next year is his last year of middle school, and he goes to Newton Bible Christian School. So they don't have a high school. So what do we do for high school then? Those are all of the things. And right now, my wife and I are just going through this and feeling a little overwhelmed, to be honest, of thinking like, man, cars. And we've lived this life so far that's been very minimal. And we're minimalist, I think, in a sense of what we need. You don't come into our house and you won't find a ton of decorations around.
Right.
I mean, it's our home. It's where we live. That's what we need it for. But to think then that, that's what's kind of driving us right now. It's kind of what is on our mind. It's kind of what's fearful for us, is like, we're going to have a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old for just a couple of years, 2.5 years and 3.5 years. And he'll be driving, and he'll be, having a girlfriend, and he'll be in high school, and he'll be playing sports if he wants to, or he'll be thinking about what he's going to do for the rest of his life. And I feel like we're running out of time. And so that's kind of it. That is it. Figuring out how do we balance all of those things together and not lose our mind. So
real life stuff.
Real life stuff. It is.
You're just like me.
So the pastor doesn't have it all figured out.
You know?
I'm trying to figure out how to raise my 12-and-a-half-year-old.
And thank you for the vulnerability, because
Yes.
some people think it's so, and I speak to people all the time, and my problems are so workable but tough.
Yeah.
And it's like it's almost embarrassing, some of the things I struggle with for me, and that's a high level problem because I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I'm still in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
They don't have the need to call or text or want to go anywhere. Friday night movie night's ours.
Right.
And what I tell my friends is the day, and it'll probably be my daughter first. She's a 7-year-old because she's just, my son's a little introverted and great kid, but he could not leave the house and not care. He don't like big crowds very much.
12-year-old's the same way.
Yeah. And so when the day that one of them come and say, I want to go with my friends, I want to know that I captured every single Friday night I could. In my mind, that's how I play it. Am I in the moment? Am I here? Am I being intentional? And am I realizing what this is? Because one day my heart's going to drop because they're I love them so much. And I just, they're amazing little people. And one day they're going to have to go out into the world and start learning things. And what does that look like?
My 12-year-old last night, I just told him last night, I said, the decisions you're making today are going to start being the decisions you make for the rest of your life. So you have to choose. We're having a little bit of a problem with some frustration with his brother, and he was getting mad at some things he probably shouldn't be mad at.
Right.
And I said, so what do you do when you go to work when you're 25 years old and you have a career and you're at a good job and there's something that you don't like there? I mean, do you get upset? Do you start getting mad and screaming at people? Or do you learn how to work through that and deal with some of the, deal with some of the life things you don't like? And so that's it. I mean, that's on my mind. If you were to ask me about the church, I would say that I'm concerned just about the thing that's kind of making me tick right now is just how do we go from just being people that show up to being people that are invested and engaged and committed.
Man.
That's another one of it. I mean, if you ask me about the Boy Scouts, I love the Boy Scouts. I took some heat for that during the campaign, but I love the Boy Scouts. Same way. How do we, we're shaping young men and young women there now too. And how do we continue to develop them into being people that we're proud to say one day that, man, I helped shape them,
Yeah. I have a book on the shelf and it's an interesting book. It's like the 7 dynamics of something Catholic. And if it didn't have Catholic in there, if it just had Christian or whatever, but it talks about the Catholic Church as a whole and how it functions and how many people actually participate in the tithing and in the serving. And it's a percentage across the history of their records. Yeah. It's like the same. Right. It's like, how do we break those barriers? Because if we have 200 people showing up, well, that same percentage is in our churches. Yes. And it's like, what is that? Right. Like, and then it's just an interesting place to be. And I love how you just said that, right? It's like, how do we push that into service mode and affect communities and then come together as bodies to serve in creative ways that is meaningful to those people that maybe don't understand what makes people like yourself tick, So yeah, man, that's pretty cool. My thing went down, but you think I would know some of these and I don't. But what is, I would like to humanize you a little bit because you're city commissioner and people will get nervous just talking to you now because of that deal. Okay.
And, you don't have to be, if anybody's listening, you don't have to be nervous. Yeah.
He's a regular dude, guys. I promise.
I promise. I don't have all the answers, so I won't tell you, this is how it is.
But you'll go look for them.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're one of those guys that you're a data driven person, but you have feelings and emotions and all that, but you don't let that drive good, hard decisions that you have to make because the greater good of the whole. And I love that piece that you bring to the table. And there's a couple other commissioners that I appreciate a ton that I know they're like that. And the ones that I don't, I'm sure they're great. I just don't really know them very well. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to meeting them all eventually. But what is something where's there an opportunity in your life where you failed at something, but you see it as an opportunity that you were able to grow through it? What is a failure that you see that you've had that you're like, man, if I could go back, here's the situation, here's what I learned from it. And if we could give something to a younger person that's watching this right now, because some of the people watching this are, a lot of our viewers are from like 22 to 30-ish. Okay. And a lot of them they could lend from wisdom from somebody that's had a lot of repetition with a lot of people. If there's something you have learned through your journey, what could you give that young cat watching right now?
Yeah. Man, I would say the biggest thing is don't just walk away from something when your path changes. Stay committed to see it through. And I can think that I had really had an interest in automotive mechanics in high school. I just enjoyed cars. I enjoyed messing with them. I have some funny stories about that I'll share some other time.
Right on.
Enjoyed working with cars. And so I started attending Votech down by East High. That would have been back in the 2000s when they saw the Votech campus there open. And when I decided I was going to join the Army and be an MP, I was not going to be in mechanics anymore. I thought, that's just, a little phase I went through and just let it go. And I pretty much just quit attending the Votech campus classes. I didn't need them to graduate, so they were just something I was doing.
Right.
I just quit attending. I pretty much gave up on it. Every once in a while, I would show up just to make it seem like I was still involved. My parents will probably listen to this, and I don't think they knew that I did that, but that's okay.
Right.
I would find places to go eat breakfast at, and all my other friends were in school. So I had to find something to do for a couple hours every morning when I was supposed to be at Votech going through classes.
Right.
And I had a teacher there, and he told me, he said, that you have a lot of potential. He said, but what I see in you is that when your mind changes, you're willing just to drop everything and change, and you're not willing to stay committed to a task. And that was changing. I mean, it was life-changing for me. And to say that, until you're done with it, you need to stay committed to it. And I was not done with Votech until the end of the school year. I could have withdrew or something like that.
Right.
That was not the point. The point was stay committed, stay learning, stay involved until the last day, and then you can be done. And I catch myself now still falling into that trap a little bit. I'll want to do something. I'll want to start something. I'll want to be involved in something. And if a little bit of interest is lost in it, then it's just like, well, I'm done. I can move on. I can go do something else. But that hurts people sometimes. And we have to be very cautious not to do that. And so I think for me, the biggest thing is, just stay committed to something. And if you say you're going to do it, be a man of your word.
See it through.
Don't give up so easily. Don't walk away from stuff. You never know what blessing could be waiting at the end of all that. There's some things now I wish I knew about cars I didn't know that maybe I would have learned if I would have stayed committed, more involved, engaged, still attending.
Right.
And saw that program through, and I wish I would have. But that's, I would say that's it. That's my biggest.
That's huge.
Failure, maybe, if you would call it that, is just walking away from stuff too soon.
But you've turned that into, it seems like, so that's a conscious thing. When you commit to something now, you view it with, okay, here's some of the processing is, am I going to be able to see this through? Yeah. What's it going to do if I don't see it through? What's my exit plan? You do all this ahead of time.
Yeah. I had a hard time saying no to a lot of things for a long time in my life because that was the idea. If I get into it and I don't like it, I can walk away from it. I'm not committed to anything. No one's going to dictate what I do in life. I'm going to decide what I'm involved in, what I'm doing. And I realized that, I need to say no earlier. And I need to say no from the beginning. I need to be able to not do something. If I don't have that much of an interest in it, don't do it.
Yeah.
And 6 months ago, a year ago, if we would have did this podcast, my life was crazy. I had, was involved in everything, and I slowly started to pull back a little bit and exiting when I could in situations. So I'm involved in a Boy Scout group in Wichita. My kid, it's his last year there. I'm ready to be done with it. They know that. I'm the committee chairperson. I do all of our paperwork, oversee our unit. I'm ready to be done with it. I have somebody else taking over, but I said I'll stay committed until February. That's when the transition happens.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing that through less than a month.
So
we're there.
So you're adjusting your energies to something that you feel, is where you're being called to serve at the next level. And for you, it's all encompassed together, but you're making those hard moves. And for some people, a guy like yourself, I would love, and I knew it after our first 30 minutes of talking to you, it was like, if I could get a guy like this on my team in 30 minutes of talking, I mean, it would be amazing because you're one of those guys that you're like, you would watch my 6, you would be getting things done. You would be innovating on the fly. You wouldn't need to be babysitted.
Yeah.
And that's it. You probably get approached a lot.
Yeah.
For a lot of things.
Yeah, I do. And it's hard sometimes to say no.
Yeah.
I'm very, I just want to see people succeed. I want to see organizations succeed, even if they're not completely in my wheelhouse of things I have an interest in, but I just want to see you succeed. So, I'm learning though to say no. So,
Raquel Thiessen, a friend of mine, and I can't wait to have her on as well. And she is an amazing story, and she's done a lot for me as a person, and helped me a lot. But at a time I really needed somebody to step up for me, she kind of put her credibility on the line for me, and I'm grateful to her for that, for giving me a chance when most people wouldn't. But anyways, she says, Andy, giving a hard no, sometimes giving your best yes, because you're letting them move on. Give a hard no, and then let them move on, and don't play with it. When you want to say no, but you don't, and you kind of say a halfway yes, and you're not really fully there because you feel like you had to say yes. She's like, you're not doing anybody any service, is what she was getting at. You're doing a disservice because you're not giving a strong no, and then telling them, hey, you'll find somebody else to give you a better yes than me, because I'm just, and what I do is I talk people out of asking me. Yeah. I'm like, okay, if you're asking me this is what I'm involved with. This is what it looks like. This is what I'll be able to do. Are you sure you want that? Because you got to set those boundaries up front, because you will get pulled 1,000 different directions. Yes. And as a leader, and it's part of a man of God, and boy, people just have all these expectations for you, but almost none of themselves. It blows me away.
Yes. Oh yeah, no, you're right.
And on the other side of it, looking in at, like, I'll talk about Chip a little bit. I'm sure there are some similarities. I see people say things sometimes about him, and I'll defend him. Even though we're not super together all the time or anything, I don't need to be. I appreciate so many things about what he does, and I see things, and I'm watching transitions, and I'm like, yeah, it's masterful, and he's taking time, and you can tell he's praying through it, and he's just moving hard, and it's a lot of work, and he doesn't have a lot of backup full time, and so he's carrying all of this, and everybody's worst day is his speed dial call, and I see these people have these expectations for pastors, and including mine. And, I pray for them, 3-4 times a week. I should do it every day, because I'm thinking, man, this guy's carrying a lot for a lot of people, and they don't see it, because when they're in front of him, it's about them right now. And I've seen that. And so, I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate what you guys do. And, I'm looking forward to seeing more leaders come in around you and help you build and grow, and watching that mission go forward the way you're envisioning it, and the way God's bringing it to you. So it's just exciting, man. And again, people, if you have expectations for others, look at yourself in the mirror, man. Right? Get involved. Help with the trash. Are the doors being locked? Who's in charge of that? How can you pitch in? How could you earn a position somewhere? Because nobody wants to give it to you, because almost nobody follows through. So, you've got to get in there, and you've got to put your nose in, and you've got to earn it. And people are looking for help. They're looking for assistance, but they don't just want to hand those things over to anybody, because almost nobody follows through. Right. And that's kind of what you're bringing to the table, is you're becoming a follow through guy.
Yes.
And that's awesome.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, is there anything I should have asked you and didn't? There's so much to talk about. Time in the Army, which you're so kind of brush over. I mean, you do. Thank you for your service. Yeah, there's so much going on right now, and today it's 2020. And here we are. Troops running overseas, and people getting phone calls right now. It's the 8th, and there's some mean stuff going on out there. And whether you agree or disagree with it, those people that are suiting up and going out there,
thinking about him, praying for him, and
so all right. So when things are tough, how tough are they really? Right?
Yeah.
And so business is tough right now.
Yeah.
And things are tough in our community, and we have hard decisions to make. But really, when we put perspective on it, we've got so much opportunity.
Oh, we do.
And with each other, and as a group, and as a community, with leaders like yourself, I just see unlimited potential in what we can do. Yeah. And, it's amazing that we have the opportunity to do it. And there's people that are sacrificing so much for us to be able to build our way, and to have these opportunities, and to chase down that business, and to serve the community in a different way, and to steward your church, and to run a small business, and have your people that you're trying to befriend come to your house and have these great conversations to show people who they are. And we can do that. And
Newton is a great community.
It is.
And we have a lot of great leaders, even with our city. I'm thinking from a city commissioner's perspective, we have a lot of great leaders that are doing their best. to make this place the best it can be.
Right.
My plea for the people maybe through this process is just that people in our community, that we would be willing to listen and not just speak all the time, that we would be willing to understand the facts before opinions, that we would be willing to see that there's no one here that wants to see this place fail. We might have different ideas on how to succeed, but none of us, at least that I know of, none of us want to see this place fail. We don't set out with the intentions of causing harm. We might have different ideas of how to get to success and maybe what success is, but everyone at our city building, our crews, our workers, they want to see success. And in fact, that the city staff has developed some policies and things, and that if you don't want to see the city succeed and it's obvious through your work, then you don't belong on the staff of the city. And I think that's huge. That's a very neat perspective. Thought when I heard that was that if you don't want to see this place succeed, you don't belong working for the city.
Right.
And that was neat to me. I mean, that was cool. So I think if we could put that in, just into our everyday life, if we don't want to see something to succeed, don't be involved in it.
Yeah. Go find something else that you're passionate about pushing forward. Yeah.
Just let's be a community of people that are willing to understand that we have different backgrounds. We have different things about us. But we all want to see Newton be a better place. Our families, we've grown in love with this place. I mean, it's home. It's really easy in our church to pack up and move and go somewhere else. We could go to Alaska if we wanted to work.
Yeah.
We could find a church in another country to go to. The Church of God is like in 92 different countries. We can find somewhere else to go. I mean, we can go anywhere in the world. And work, and very cool. Newton is home. That's cool. Neither of us are from here. So we've both made the decision to say, this is it. And we're committed, at least for the time being. If the Lord calls us somewhere else, we'll go. But, him and I have had a lot of conversations about that. And I feel like he's telling me that I'm keeping you there for a long while. So we're happy. And we love this place.
No matter where God takes you, and this is not anything's in concrete, because he's in control at the end of the day, for our beliefs and what we choose to believe. But at the end of the day, I'm blessed that we have you here right now. Thank you for giving me a breath of fresh air. That was weird. And, because you're young, you're ambitious, you're smart, you're aggressive, but you're caring and soft all at the same time. And your ability to transition and deal with people and talk to people and connect with people is unbelievable. And, people say, oh, Clint's a homophobic and all these crazy things. And I'm thinking, are you kidding? Have you ever talked to the guy? Have you heard him unpack that in front of 150 people or something that one day?
Yeah.
And it's like, did you hear that? Why are you repeating something you have know nothing about? Which is, to your point, get to know people.
Yeah. Sit down for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I would say I'll buy anybody a cup of coffee, but if there's like a couple thousand people that listen to this, then I don't know that I can afford a cup of coffee. It'll probably be pretty close, but I think only like maybe 5 will take you up on it. Okay.
That's usually the deal, because I ask people for cups of coffee all the time, and almost nobody, and sometimes they just ghost me. They just stop talking to me, and very few will actually private message me. It's like, well, I just wanted to have a good conversation. I'm not trying to win. Maybe you could teach me something, and I'm down to learn.
Yes.
There's some things that I have as foundational things that, I'm going to believe what I'm going to believe in, but there's a lot of room for me to grow in a lot of areas. And if people would unpack me as a person, it's like, some of it's so ridiculous. I'm dealing with tax stuff right now. It's almost unbelievable that I let it get to where it's at. Yeah. And it's like, that's a pretty low level problem for many people that I'm dealing with, and I ain't got it all figured out, but I'm going to move through it. We're going to get better. We'll put things in place not to let it happen again. Doggone it, I know better. Sometimes it's making the bed.
Taxes are taxes, though. I mean, there's only 2 things in life that are certain.
Death and taxes.
Yeah, that's right.
And then one of them's not. Well, they're probably both knocking at my door. In some sense, they are. But the taxes thing is something that it's a monster in its own right. But even my daily schedule, right? Even eating too much, and knowing better. Why do I do that?
Yeah,
I know better. Yeah. It's a simple, but it's not. It's not easy.
Right.
It's very simple, but it's not easy.
Oh, no, it's not.
And so all of us have stuff, and for us just to come together as a community. And I hope what this podcast does is it shines light on you as a person.
Thanks. Yeah.
Your church and what you're doing there, the movement that you're creating, going into the city with a different goggles on, but able and willing to listen to everybody, but being straight up and doing your homework. When you're saying something, when Clint says something, guys, he's probably looked at it. And if you have information otherwise, just call him up, message him. I mean, is that fair?
No, I'm willing to talk. Yeah.
You're willing to talk.
Yeah.
And if you can share information and you have another side, but be ready for a good debate, right?
Yes,
I mean, you're not going to be able to.
I don't, I try not to, obviously a lot of things are my opinion. I mean, you go to 27 churches, right? They're actively involved or something like that.
Yeah. It's a podcast, dude.
Anybody can make those numbers see whatever they want them to be. We could probably make it seem like there's 100 here if we really wanted to.
Yeah.
There's the people that sit at home and listen to something on TV all the time, and that's all they do. And so we could call them, but no, I'm always up to listen, and I don't ever, I do my best to never say anything with the intentions of division. So
right.
It's I think maybe just as a city commissioner, even more so now, I'm going to be in the spotlight than even just as a pastor.
Yeah.
I was pretty low key, flew under the radar. People at Norms knew me. That was about it. But
well, with your banter and the joking that you do, I think there's some people that take it so serious that's maybe a place you might just do it for fun for you and a few of your friends. Yeah. But as the public, I don't know if they'll get a lot of that, but thank you for that. Thank you for stepping up and being a leader and for serving, and congratulations on the win and moving our city forward. And I think you're going to be a great asset. I know there's a lot to learn probably. Yeah. But to end this thing, is there anything you want to say to the community before we end this thing?
Man, I think just find somebody around you to support, to love, to encourage. A lot of times we get more when we give than what we give, so we receive more than what we give when we're giving to someone else. And I think if we could just do a better job of that, I've always been blown away by the friendliness of this community. Yeah. But there's always room for improvement, and we can never, we should never miss an opportunity to be kind to someone else. Awesome. And just do that all the time. That's it, man.
And real quick, want to shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Midtown Venues for sponsoring our hour today. Thank you to Remax here in Newton, locally owned Remax brokerage. Thank you to Axon Displays for sponsoring our time together today. Really appreciate it. And if you guys have any ideas or you have people that you want to bring on, please send us messages. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you guys have feedback, we're not going to get our feelings hurt. We want to know if we're doing a good job and what we can do to get better. And so thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for serving, and we'll talk to you soon, bro.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, man. Later.